Yeah.
It's my great joy and pleasure, first of all, to welcome all of you. I think there's some people, new people here. I think maybe the Kendall folks are here on their closed circuit channel. We've been having a great time at the Credo Festival. It's a weird year. We're on Zoom for hopefully the last time that we're totally there. But we've been having some really wonderful lessons and uh, interpretive classes and chair music during the day, and the evening has been a bunch of stuff. Um, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of welcoming David Chan, who is the concertmaster of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. But more than that, he is, a very highly educated Harvard person and conductor and just a Renaissance man. So he will certainly give tremendous musical and technical insight. But the times I've spoken with him, we just come to know each other in the last year. I've been really amazed and delighted at the way he brings all the forces of the world together to reflect on music, which is really what when we do that, it makes our music super powerful. So our first performer is Maria Beltovsky, and Maria is we've selected some young professionals here for tonight, so we didn't have to leave out any students. So there are students that are not in the program. Maria is a many-time Credo alumna, and she has a master's from Cleveland Institute of Music, and is just preparing Mozart Concerto. She's about to take some professional auditions. Was married about 6 weeks ago and took her violin on her honeymoon, but bless her heart, did not do much with the violin. So good decision both ways. And so, Maria, why don't you introduce yourself that I haven't and introduce your piece, please?
Yeah, so I talked to Mr. Sloak a bit when we were talking about this and thought it would be kind of cool to do almost like a mini mock audition. So I'm going to play the exposition of the Fifth Mozart Concerto. So it's about the first section of it, and then I'm also going to be playing two orchestral excerpts, one from Strauss's Don Juan and one from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Kind of give the students and anyone else watching a little inside look at kind of what maybe a first round of an orchestra audition might look like. So
Great. So why don't you play those all in a row before I comment then?
okay, yeah, just play them and then great.
Yeah, sounds good. Wonderful. Thank you. Great. Very well done. Of course, teaching somebody in a one-time situation is always a tricky thing because when you work with somebody on a regular basis, you can you can work on different aspects. You can get super detailed one time and then kind of go for the long view another time. And you know, when you meet somebody one time, I'm always trying to identify what's going to give them kind of the most useful tools to build on and also is maybe educational for the whole class, just to make it different than, how is a master class different than a private lesson in that sort of way. And of course, doing it online doesn't make it any easier. But when I hear you play, I hear a lot of virtues. I hear it's very naturally musical, which I like very much. It's not fussy. And one of my biggest pet peeves are flat spots in the music, kind of where you hit something and then it doesn't go anywhere from there. So I don't hear that, which is great. What I would say though is one thing you could think about is what is the cumulative effect of your phrasing? So I hear you going up, I hear you coming down, but when I zoom out, there's a slight tendency to hit the same high points and hit the same low points. So it's a little bit traveling within the same range all the time, as opposed to in the long span of the music, building kind of, it might have local highs and lows, but it builds to kind of a more of a global high and comes down, if that makes any sense. So the I see a violin. Where's my bow? It's in the case. All right. So I think a lot of this really just comes down to the amount of bow that you use. And I love that you use it generously. But if you take the first note of the Mozart, now, presumably you want to build from here. If you use a full bow, you see, in a way, like you hear the build up, but in another way, you hear a little bit like three small hills. So I would encourage you to think about pacing your bow more for where you are in the phrase. And it's not like it sounds so mathematical when I talk about it like this. It's not like getting a piece of graph paper out and charting how much bow you're going to use on each note. It's much more organic than that. But let's say I start not quite at the frog and I don't go quite to the tip. Now, if I come back all the way to the frog and then use a full bow, I've now managed to do a certain amount and then more and then more. And if I do the reverse on the other side, now gradually more and more. I hope it makes it across the airwaves enough for you to hear.
Sure. Yeah.
The amount of bow, I mean, there are a lot of other factors, but nothing is going to influence the volume of sound more than how quickly you're moving the bow.
Sure.
So if I just kind of generously use whole bow on every note, what do I get? I get I hope you can hear the difference.
Yeah.
You hear the same intention of an arc like that, but because I'm just kind of using the same amount of bow, there's a slight sameness to it. Whereas the other one, where the amount of bow varies more,
Right.
there's more variety to it. And it's really the same with so throughout the Mozart, like the slow introduction, the body of the movement, we hear that. We also hear that in the excerpts a little bit. So I mean, Don Juan, the excerpt is mostly loud except for a few spots. But even there, like if I'm not mindful, there is it kind of just keeps tracing the same groove. Whereas if I shape it more intentionally, there are more highs and lows there. Okay, so that's kind of the direction I would like to see you move in. Everything was beautifully prepared. I was very clear about where you wanted to go with phrases, but just you can make them more specific. You can make them more focused in terms of what you want to say. So let's do a little bit of the concerto again first. Okay, very good. Very good. I already hear a difference. I think one other element that's maybe playing into it is regardless of what you're doing with your bow, your style of vibrato is it's fairly juicy, which is beautiful, but it can vary a little bit more along with your bow usage. So I find a very useful way to think about this is to try to let the bow lead you. Like right now, it feels a little bit like you're trying to vibrate your phrasing as opposed to really sculpt it with your right hand. So a really useful way to go about this is to, and I might add ahead of time, can be quite painful and humbling, but is to play the same without vibrating, because then you're forced to really and the goal is not to play and be like, wow, that's really colorless. The point is to try to produce as close to the finished product that you want with only the bow.
Sure.
Yes, you'll lose some degree of color, but if you really do it well, it is possible to come close. So let's try that once
Without vibrato.
without vibrato.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. Can you tell me what you became aware of that maybe you hadn't been thinking of before?
Yeah, because I that time I thought less about my. I think I was maybe thinking too much about my left hand than my bow hand. So I just felt like I wasn't even like focusing on this at all. I was just focusing on this. And I also know I could tend to see like in certain places where I was trying to phrase that I like had to really stop myself from using vibrato.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the automatic reflex to produce a change here, but these changes are actually very small. It's
Sure.
like I always say, like, if you're playing orange, you can make it a lighter or darker orange,
Uh-huh.
but you can't with your vibrato turn it into a blue. It's too far away from orange.
Sure.
You would have to, it's like across the room. You have to go there, which involves like a big change in how you use your bow,
Yeah.
right? So, what I heard was that your phrasing seemed much more intentional. Like you really had to be deliberate about how you were going to produce it with your bow, and that's what I'm looking for in your playing. You can probably already extrapolate, like if you were to play the Beethoven excerpt again, how that would apply,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because otherwise, if I kind of generically, I'm not saying you did this, but if I generically, and then you see how like the nuancing is, it's very, very little, whereas I'm making it a little bit bulgier than I normally would. But as a way of illustrating, if just with my bow, I can make much bigger highs and lows. Yeah, so that's really what I want to see you doing in your playing. Just so that we close that loop with the Mozart, do it again with vibrato. But this is the trick: is if you're used to letting the left hand take over, now you have to try to replicate what you just did. So it's more of not preventing yourself from vibrating, but you really have to try to let the bow guide how you're going to shape that phrase, right? So we're trying to duplicate what you just did,
Yeah.
but you're going to color it more with vibrato. The left hand is going to follow the right hand's lead. Good. How did that feel for you?
Yeah, I felt a little bit. I think I still just at times I could just feel my left hand taking over, and then it just was like this constant battle of no, no, no.
Yeah.
But I can see like playing it. I feel like maybe I'd have to play it without vibrato like a couple times, and then you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
I can tell like the divide of really like there were a couple of times that I was like really focused on this, and then I would slowly like lose my focus just on the bow.
Yeah,
So
it was a little bit in between, right? It was more specific than before, but not like when you did it without vibrato. Okay, so if you apply it throughout the Mozart, even something like, I'm exaggerating the amount, but it's like gradually increasing in amount, and I don't know what that is, but so even like those kind of large scale shapes, the amount of bow you use is going to make a huge amount of difference in that,
yeah,
right? So even though it's quicker, it's maybe less obvious, but the same sort of rule applies. Um, just so we can apply this to one of the other pieces, how about a little bit of Beethoven? Just as now these are kind of long, slow bows, so you're probably going to use a full bow for almost every bow, but it's more a question of how you're distributing it along the length of the bow.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna do it without vibrato like that way we talked about, or just
Sure, that would be very helpful. Okay, so tell me your thoughts.
sorry, just even from the first note, I was like, wow.
Well,
I think
it's very revealing, isn't it?
it is, yeah.
Okay, so you don't need any comments from me. You heard it. Try it again and see what you can do with it. Okay, so I thought the first two or three bows were noticeably different, and then after that, it got a little bit generalized again. Would you agree?
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, but so if you can identify what you heard in that kind of deliberate control over the nuances, um, right? So it's not planned per se, but it's not left to chance. It's not just kind of I'm moving the bow and seeing what comes out. It's like it's being tuned by the ear all the time.
And yeah,
Right.
and following along with just it's in a way should be easy just because the shape is already being given for you. But sometimes I think you can have, or I have the ability sometimes to go bow wise on autopilot, and that's something that you can easily go on autopilot for. And so I think yeah, just really focusing on.
Yeah. Well, this is I work on this so much with students, and it's a very simple reason why. It's like most of my students, for whatever reason, over the years have been master's students. So they're already at a point where they play very, very well, and normally don't need a ton of work on the left hand. They've already done most of the solo Bach, like a good chunk of the Paganini caprices, most of the major concertos. And you know what? So it's like, what are we doing now to kind of get you to that next level so you can go out there? And I really feel like, in a way, if you can grasp this concept, then you're at a point where you can teach yourself in a way,
Yeah.
right? So like the Beethoven is mostly stepwise. So you're not going to have any jarring changes of character. But if it just kind of, you see, like, if it's completely flat, that's no good. And then on the other hand, if there's just kind of like a repetitive scoop that happens because every bow has the same shape, whether it's this one or this one,
Yeah.
neither is the most appealing. I mean, it could be okay, but it's not going to be the most interesting. Whereas the one that kind of gradually insinuates its way around the curve and takes us somewhere else, oh, that's so much more interesting because it tells a story,
Yeah.
right? So I have to go to one of the other plays in a moment, but I think you can imagine, even though Don Juan we think about as it's being so technical, but in a way, right, that kind of upwards and then so it's always, yum, and then yappa. Again, it's always like this. It's not just ba ba ba, but again, not that that's what was in your mind, but I think what happens for a lot of people, and what I was hearing from you, is I think you have a clear idea of what you want the phrasing to be, but because your bow from end to end tends to be more similar than different, the differences are much smaller coming to us than you might imagine in your own ear. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh yeah, if I'll record myself and I was like you said, have in my mind what I want, and I'll record myself and listen back sometimes and be like, yeah, it just kind of sounds flat, and like, I knew exactly where I wanted, but it's not. Sometimes it doesn't come out as I hear the phrase in my head actually in my arm, and I think maybe sometimes I focus too much on the left hand, trying, like you said, trying to do that, but really it's just all about the bow, and the bow has to make those moves. So
Yeah, so just really zero in on what you are actually producing from the bow, and practicing without vibrato really exposes that.
yeah,
Okay, so I mean, I'm sorry, this is like the cruelest 30-minute lesson. I mean, I will work on students with this over 2 years, so it's kind of like I gave a high school freshman the SAT, and it's like just left them on the side of the street and say, here, do what you can with this. But
no,
I can see you understand, and just work on it as you can.
yeah, no, that's super helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
A pleasure. Okay, Peter, let's move on.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. I'd like to introduce Thomas Cooper. And Thomas is a wonderful violinist because he also played viola during undergrad school. So he did a violin viola double performance major here at Oberlin, then did a master's at NEC, and now is launching his career in the Boston area, or was until COVID hit. So Thomas, go ahead and introduce yourself and your piece. Thomas was a one-year student at Credo, but he had the joy of playing with us at Brandenburg Concerti. We had a nice that year we played them in Severance Hall and also Orchestra Hall, Chicago. So that was fun. Thomas, was yours the fourth that you played?
I played the fourth, yes.
Cool. Introduce what you're going to play tonight.
Hello, everyone. As Mr. Slowick said, my name is Thomas, and I'll be playing the first movement of the Beethoven Violin Concerto. Mr. Chan, since it might be tough for you to stop me, I maybe somebody can either look on and tell me when you're waving your hands, or I can stop at a moment where you think might be appropriate.
Okay, well, maybe for the moment, let's just assume, just to make it easy, let's just assume the exposition.
Okay.
And if I decide it's important to stop you before then, I'll find a way. And if I want you to continue, I'll tell you at that point.
Okay.
Okay?
Just before I forget, I am joined tonight by Pearson Wetzel on the piano.
Great. Great, bravo. Really beautifully played, and I always find that I'm in my best shape when I'm working on this piece because it's basically just scales and arpeggios. So it kind of it's not only the best piece, but you get kind of great training while you do it. But it also means, of course, that your tone and your intonation have to be really pure, and you brought that across beautifully. So bravo for that. I was trying to think what I should say to you because it's already at such a high level. A couple things come to mind. One is when I mean, it seems to me that you hear the piece in terms of harmonic rhythm, like not the speed of the note, but just kind of where the chord changes are. And I love that because it prevents it from being, if you look at just the quantity of notes, you end up playing too slow because it seems like there's so many notes. Whereas when you hear the speed of the chord changes, which are very far apart, you end up with a tempo that balances serenity with virtuosity, which I think you have. But sometimes I feel like between chord changes or coming off of tied notes, there's a sort of a gap there. And often it's where there's a leap on the instrument or there's some sort of gear shift technically. And at those moments, I feel like you're not as well connected as at the other moments, right? So it might be something like I may be exaggerating here, but right. So it's not maybe not that obvious, but I would almost prefer to hear that you intensify coming off the tie rather than letting it go away, because then we get like a little gap there or something. Another example would be um, again, I'm exaggerating, but obviously these are awkward moments and we don't want to just rush through it to be in tempo, but just to be mindful of how we connect those moments, right? So there's one even at the beginning is the if there's like a little dead moment, even if you don't cut the sound, if it's not alive all the way through, it feels like somebody cut the phrasing. All right? Can we play again from the beginning? Okay, very good. Good. One tiny little note is that on those broken octaves, they're not written as even eighths. This time was a little bit better, but the first time it sounded like the upper note is the melody note, and the bottom note is just a decoration. Now, after those ties. Now, this is always a question, what do we do with this? But there's a fine line between slightly not alive enough and trying too hard. And just once in a while, we get a dead note in there. Like one I noticed. Or, really at the corners. Anytime you're changing the nuance, that's where you have to watch out. It's at those joins that there might be a note that you just have to massage it a little bit more with the bow, or it needs like a little, like one wiggle of vibrato just to get you around the corner. Otherwise, we end up with the right angle where there shouldn't be one. Right? So it's not a major adjustment in anything you're doing. It's just kind of rubbing a little bit of glue into those joints where you turn the corner. Okay, one more time, please. Okay, good. Very good. I thought that was beautiful. Only when you get to towards the end of it, as you have more and more shifts, right? If you don't have, if you don't give it that a little bit of TLC right there, you see, that sounds a little bit on the technical side rather than just shining. Okay. So the last bar was great. Before that, these were kind of hard edged. Give it the same sort of treatment that you do on the next bar, just a little bit smaller. Yeah, you see how that's just a little bit more polished.
Yeah.
But it's not a huge difference. It's something you already do. But it's just kind of identifying that there are a couple notes in there that stuck out in not the best way.
Right.
And it's because everything around it sounds so good that they stick out a little bit. You know, good. It's a good problem to have. Okay, going on. I noticed the first time you is that on a down bow for you?
Yeah. So I'm doing.
Yeah. So be careful that the first note is not the loudest one, because it came out a little bit like that. It has to go to that second bar of the melody.
I see. Yeah. So maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right, maybe with the piano, let's get a running start from. Okay, very good. So, I mean, this is, of course, so difficult to play really, really well. Um, I would just say that you could identify a little bit more precisely what sustains and what releases in the passage. And by that, what I mean by that is the feeling of how much you hold on to the notes. It has nothing to do with speed because the tempo never changes. But it's like da 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 da. You know what? Why am I singing? I play better than I sing. So you see how there's a little holding on. Maybe I should sing actually. right? So like the second phrase even has that surprise sforzando on the second note. Da, ya, da, da, yum, and then ya, ya, dum. So even in the opening tutti, we feel that, right? Boom, 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 boom. Right? So there's the broadly sustained and then the more relaxed, open second part of the phrase. See if you can capture that a little bit. Oh, it's all right. It's all right. You know what it comes down to? It's a little bit of what I was talking about with Maria before is you just have to be a little bit more conscious about how much bow you spend in what part of the phrase. Because otherwise what happens is we systematically get a little bit louder in the middle of the bow. Right? It's just kind of that, whether you call it banana stroke or beer belly stroke, it's like one of these things that just right in the middle. If we're not careful, we get. You don't sound like this, but because we're using like an amount of bow that we're not precisely calculating, and we get little bulges of speed just to get to that spot, and we don't necessarily really need that. Right? So when we're at a lower point in the phrase, you don't necessarily need to use as much bow. Then when you use a little bit more, we automatically get an increase rather than getting kind of extra bulges because of just, well, we're used to going from A to B, and you don't excuse me, you don't necessarily need to do that. One more time and then continue. Okay, good. Thomas, there I would say use more at the beginning. Just that way, it's kind of relaxing to the top. Um, I lose a couple of notes like around the second beat or so. So don't be afraid to spend a little bit more bow there. Let's go directly from. Good. Very good. So I think one other element you can incorporate is slightly more characteristics of the register you're in. You already do it, but you can do it more. So what I mean by that is, like when you go from the difference between kind of more silvery and a little bit darker. And then as you get lower, I think you already do that, but in the upcoming section as well, though. I guess it's one part bringing out the characteristics of the register you're inhabiting, and another is that there's constant subtle variation. It's nothing affected or exaggerated. It's just no matter how beautifully you play, if the notes that are close to each other are too similar, there's a certain sameness that results, because in the end, it's all the same types of figures again and again in the piece. Okay, let's do the same place one more time.
From
Oh yeah, from the D minor. Okay, good, good. Up till there, I thought it was much better, and it's really not anything you weren't already doing. It's a question of degree, right? So here, however, I do feel that your part sounds one whisker mechanical. The more you can kind of sing, the melody exists in your figures as well. So it feels just slightly, it feels more about the figures than the way it weaves with the melody. I would just love to hear you sing it one tiny bit more, like make it less technical sounding. Okay, just maybe the chromatic going up. Yep. Yeah. It was better. Can you feel how you're often like a little bit ahead of the melody?
yeah.
So, so the thing is, I mean, you are the soloist, but the Beethoven concerto and the Brahms concerto, which we're going to hear in a minute, these are really symphonies where the violin is just happens to be the biggest part. And you're quite at the mercy of the conductor, and hopefully your conductor for this piece and for that piece is a great musician, because you have to kind of fit into the symphonic structure. So it's actually remarkable how few times the violin actually gets the melody in this movement, right? You just had it before, and then you have it again in the same spot in the recap, and then after the cadenza. And I think that's about it. I mean, maybe at the very beginning we had it for a moment, but the orchestra is the primary voice in this. So try to do it one last time, and then we have to move on. But just try to ride in the passenger seat. A very, very beautiful passenger seat, but nevertheless not the driver. Yes, yes.
Yeah, that felt better.
Yeah, it's better integrated, much better integrated. But look, you're playing it very beautifully, which is a big achievement. Just kind of push it in these directions. I think will help you get it to the next level.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for playing.
Thanks, Thomas. Great to see you again. Our final performer for the night is Anne Yu. Anne Yu came to Credo as a youngster, and now she is one of the teaching faculty. So she has all her degrees from CIM. Is that true, Anne?
Yes, that's correct.
Masters. And introduce your piece, please. The Brahms Concerto, which we know now, but
Sorry.
Okay.
could you come talk to, how much are you going to play?
Do you want me to do the exposition? Is that okay?
Yeah, let's plan on that, and then we'll
Well.
see. Very strongly played. Bravo on that. So actually, with you, I'd like to build on something I said to Thomas at the end of his numbers. You know, this again is a major symphony that happens to have a huge violin part. And so where I'm going with this is actually a standpoint of rhythm. And you know, being a violinist, I can identify exactly why you played the rubato that you did. They feel very good on the instrument, but the way the piece is held together symphonically, though, sometimes it doesn't make the most sense that it could based on what's underlying it. So even, you know, like I encounter this a lot actually. Even like the first note, when you come off of it, like I didn't necessarily feel what speed you would even come out of it.
Okay.
Right, so it's not to say that that first bar has to be exactly in time, but there should be a way when you release off of it that what comes out after it is not slightly surprising. And same thing with ba-da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Right, so and so on and so forth. It's not that I play every beat metronomically. There's a certain give, but there's these kind of wayposts that I have to respect. And so it felt a little bit like, you know, it's like a speeding up sequence that makes sense violinistically, but with Brahms's rhythmic guideposts, it didn't quite fit necessarily. So that sort of thing, just to be, you know, I know we don't have the advantage of a pianist playing with you tonight also, but you know, that's where I would really guide you with this. Okay, let's start again from the top. Okay, so better, but sometimes I had a moment of zoom lag, so it may not have been you, like I feel like you don't quite wait long enough. It felt kind of like you, and then oh, right, there's like it's traditional to have a little bit of time there, but da 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 ya da dum, but it just kind of feels like you finish and then you play when you're ready. But you have to imagine the eighth note pickup in the orchestra there.
Mhm.
Okay. Good, much better. Keep going. Okay, good, good. So there, I know strictly speaking, you have some freedom in that bar, but it just feels that like to just wait so long and speed up so much is not necessarily organic to the phrase. So let's see. I think just there comes a point where obviously the orchestra is just holding chords, and you don't have to be strictly in tempo. But I think still sudden lurches are not necessarily organic to the phrase because basically it's one long dominant seventh chord,
Right. Hmm.
right? Okay, so
Yeah.
let's maybe just from okay, good, good. So where you are now, the sixteenths feel like they're the right speed. The triplets feel very fast compared to that.
Okay.
Okay, that's I think that's the issue at hand.
Okay.
So there, the theme is beautifully played, and there is another example. So again, nothing is forcing you. But you add almost an entire beat to the downbeat there. So you go, right? So that it's fine if that bar stretches a little, but it's like the proportion of it has been disrupted now. So we need to be able to feel that. That you're always starting from the middle of the bar, even if it takes a little longer or a little less time. But if you add that much time for no apparent reason, then we don't get that sense. We're rhythmically displaced at that point.
Hmm.
Okay, start from where you have the melody. Good. Better. And a little bit similar to the previous passage where I said the triplets were fast compared to the sixteenths.
Okay.
The triplets here feel like they're the right speed, but the duples before feel hurried.
Okay.
Right? It feels a little But then when you get to then your triplets are actually a little slower, and they feel like they're the right speed. Just be more patient with the duples, I would say.
Okay. Same place?
Yeah. Yeah, good, good. Right where you were, just to take a break from the rhythm thing for a moment, it feels like you could make a little bit more diminuendo there, right? He writes diminuendo to piano, and it just maybe tonally it could relax just a tiny bit more. Were you consciously more kind of rigorous rhythmically this time with all of
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because the orchestra has the bomb, 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 bomb. So I would say though that uh, mm, without speeding up, it can have a little bit more direction to the top.
Okay.
Like
Sure.
based on the way you played the chords, the 16th felt a little bit held back. It
Okay.
should intensify the feeling of motion.
Sure.
Okay?
Right.
Yep.
Oh.
From there. Okay, so the kind of exaggerated pauses that you had the first playthrough are gone now, but all these triplets now, for my taste, they feel a little relentless, both tempo wise and tonally, right? So all this is quite strong. Once you go to the minor, it just feels like it could sing more. I mean, you have the melody in your part. It just feels a little right? It doesn't relax either rhythmically or tonally. Let's see if we go from. Okay, better. Next. Okay, so this, remember that orchestra already has before you. Da 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 ya da 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 ya da da da. You're completely justified to take some time at the end, but to right, it doesn't work because you're not joining what was handed off to you. Okay, so and to be fair, I didn't hear any orchestra or piano, so I can't quite say. But when you enter, it sounds like you're starting, right? It sounds like you, but instead it should be ba da 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 ya da 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 ya da da dum. You're catching the tail end of something. You're not starting something new. Good, good. This is all very well played and one of the most uncomfortable spots in the whole piece. But I would love to hear, how should I say, like a slightly more defined plan for how we step our way down this, right? So the way I think of it, this, then each harmony change. It kind of like, like one leg moves and then the other one comes down and then it kind of zigzags its way down like that. So just kind of feel the harmony. There's a suspension, then the bass moves and the top moves, and it kind of interlocks like that. So for me, it makes kind of sense on the tenths where that kind of stepping over action happens. So it's not any one consistent way, but it's not every one, but it's also not random. And right now, it feels a little bit like the time is taken when it's the most convenient for you, as opposed to harmonically driven.
Okay.
Right, so let's just go from. Okay.
I think. Sorry.
Yeah, no, no, like we're not worried about the catching those notes now, but in terms of timing, that was much more organic. So just to kind of tie together what I'm talking about, so I'm not implying in any way that you don't know what the rhythms are or that you're not counting them right or well, but there's actually something um, in the entrance exams at Juilliard. They used to have this sheet where you had to score various aspects of a person's playing from 1 to 10. And one of them was rhythm. And you might think putting rhythm 1 to 10 is a pretty tricky task. And what does that actually mean? Well, I mean, you could just look at like 1 to 3 as just completely unacceptable and all that. But really, I found that basically by the time you're at a 7 or 8, the rhythm is fine. But so what makes a 9 rhythm or a 10 rhythm? It's not really necessarily being more accurate in terms of the note values. What it is using the rhythm to having the capability of taking the rhythm to advance the music making, right? So like one passage you did extremely well rhythmically was da 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 da. If you play da 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 da, it doesn't convey the same character. So it's where rhythm is not only correct, but being taken advantage in a way to enhance the expression. And so that's what I feel like you're not quite capitalizing on now is when I hear it, everything is more or less in the right rhythm if you count it, but it's not projecting the music as strongly as it could. And a lot of times that's rooted in what the orchestra has in their part and not in what the solo line looks like.
Hmm.
Okay, so I would just have a look and a thought about that. Um, just this piece, like the overall structure, is a huge part of how the solo part should be delivered. Not just, it's not the same as the Wieniawski concerto where the delivery of the solo part is the primary thing. Okay, but it was very well played. It was great to hear you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It was a
you.
pleasure.
Thanks so much, David. It's marvelous to hear your variety of neat things you're saying to people, and just thank you for blessing us with everything you have done tonight. This is the last kind of public class for Credo. You guys still have a day tomorrow, but it's as just listening to the fine playing of people who were students. All these people were students just like you in Credo a few years ago, and they're playing so beautifully. And yet, Maestro Chan has told them lots and lots of things to do with their playing. So it is, it's so exciting to be involved with music. It's also exciting to be involved with your walk as a human being and in your faith life. And no matter what you learn, there's always something to learn from mentors and different ways of looking at things. And that's why we love being part of the Credo family. And I hope you've gotten a glimpse of that even through the imperfect lens of the pandemic this year and the online. So we'll be talking to you about ways we can stay together as the festival ends. Hopefully, just like the technical things, and the musical things, and the spiritual things you've learned, they won't end. They'll continue to grow and thrive in you. We just hope that these relationships we start will continue to thrive. So big round of applause for the performers and also for Meister Chan. And it was a blessing to listen in on this tonight and to be part of what you've all been doing over the last couple of weeks. All the best to you in years to come. You have a bunch of friends here at Credo. Use these resources as you can. Mary Taylor has been made host. I'm going to unpin myself. Mary, do you want to pin yourself? And she's going to lead a discussion that will follow on the faith side of some things and put some things together. So thank you all for being here, and blessings to you and your future journey. Take care.
Thank you, Peter. Bye-bye.
We'll take a 5-minute break to give everyone a chance to walk around, use the bathroom. So we'll start at 7:40. I don't think anyone stayed. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm on mute. I was being polite. Yeah, we'll see. It's the end of a long thing.
Yeah.
Great topic. Looks like Kendall is still on WSCC TV. I think that's what that is. Um,
Okay.
maybe they'll come back after 5 minutes. Maybe they're taking
Yeah.
it to heart.
I understand if not. I mean, it's a long week of Zoom, but I'll stay on in case.
Yeah. How did it go the other day? How many people did you have?
It was good. We had two people, and both of them were not there the first time. I was surprised because there's a couple people really excited the first time. Like Marie and Elizabeth, they both said like we can't wait to come back, but I guess something came up. So it was Sophie and Esme last time.
Yeah.